Hi, my name is Tai Tanu, and this is my presentation on radiation pollution, Kazakhstan versus Russia. So there's going to be an interactive presentation, so I'm going to be asking questions or pressing buttons, and you'll see. So let's go. So these are the topics I'm going to cover throughout my presentation, and we're going to start off with the country, Kazakhstan. So, do you know the main source of radiation pollution in Kazakhstan? So the Semipalatinsk in Kazakhstan is a nuclear power plant, nuclear bomb site, or a mining area. I'll give you 3 seconds. It is a nuclear bomb site. So the Semipalatinsk was a nuclear bomb test site used by the Soviet Union during the Cold War. So it's located in northern Kazakhstan and was used by the Soviet Union between 1949 to 1989 with a total of 456 total tests conducted there. But as these tests were conducted, the nearby communities by the Semipalatinsk were neglected. The bomb tests were conducted by the rivers, and they also left materials and craters on the land, so much of the food and water sources were affected. And the remains of these tests were a majority plutonium waste, which caused and still causes diseases and such diseases such as lung and bone cancer, and they also cause birth defects. And so back to home. And so next we're gonna go to Russia. So Chernobyl. Second question, what radioactive incident is Russia known for? Either Chernobyl or Fukushima. I realize now that I already showed you the answer, but this, I'll still give you some time. It is Chernobyl, you got it right. So the Chernobyl meltdown, it was an incident that occurred in Western Russia on April 26, 1986, and it was the result of a scheduled safety test that went wrong. The people at the nuclear power plant were doing a power outage simulation to prepare for a real life situation, but although it was supposed to be a minutes long delay, it unexpectedly became a 10-hour delay. So a shutdown was triggered at the nuclear power plant, and the overheated cooling water caused a steam explosion, and following the steam explosion, there was a fire. So there were nearby communities that then had to be evacuated due to the air pollution from the fire and also the radioactive material that was then being spread in the air. And a lot of the waste left was major iodine and cesium pollution, which causes bleeding and nausea, thyroid cancer, and death. And back then, and still today, it also causes birth defects by the remains of it. So, I'm going to go back to home, and we're going to talk about the public and private sectors and their roles in radiation pollution. So, we're going to start with Kazakhstan. So, Kazakhstan, they have the Agency on Health of the Republic, and their goal is to control the use of nuclear goods, so controlling the imports and exports of radioactive materials. They also regulate licenses, laws, and materials concerning radioactive pollution and materials, and they also want to conduct emergency preparedness, organize research on radiation. And this is a way to prepare for the worst case scenarios that can come from radioactive waste and the usage of materials. Next, Russia. So Russia, they have the Gosatodomzar and Minotom. I'm sorry for mispronouncing those. And so the first one, Gosatodomzar, is the State Committee for Nuclear and Radiation Safety, and it is Russia's committee that conducts regulatory and oversight on nuclear power plants, and they also do licenses. They also regulate licenses on facilities that use radioactive materials. So there's a way to keep track of which companies are using and um, disposing of radioactive waste. And the Minatom, the Ministry of Atomic Energy, their job is to store materials from dismantled nuclear weapons or power plants, and they also conduct research on radiation safety and preparedness, and they also do maintenance and repair of civilian power plants. And lastly, for the private sector, in Kazakhstan, they have the Kazatomprom, and they import foreign radioactive waste in a way to keep it out of like nature, and they raise money by charging other countries for their disposal of their nuclear waste. And they do this because their country is already experienced as such with the semi-palatines, and it is a way for them to generate wealth for the country. And it is risky though because the country has such strong anti-nuclear sentiments as a result of the semi-palatines bomb testings. And Russia, they also use the Kazatomprom because they send their nuclear waste or radioactive waste to Kazakhstan to dispose of it. But they also have the Buryakova, which is a private company that does waste disposal in the exclusion zone, which is where Chernobyl is currently located. And so, some current policies in both countries to tackle radioactive waste and pollution. So, in Kazakhstan, on April 14th, 1997, they signed the Law on Atomic Energy Use. And so, this law dictates that radioactive materials should only be used for in a peaceful way, not for weapons as such. And it also designated state bodies to regulate nuclear or radiation safety and the licensing of any type of nuclear activity. So, as I mentioned earlier, the Agency of Health of Kazakhstan. And on April 23rd, 1998, they also signed in the Law on Radiation Safety of Population. So the goal is to protect communities from the adverse effects of ionizing radiation, such as the birth defects and cancer, and the people's rights to safety, managing duties, and responsibilities of radiation sources. So being responsible and preparedness. And they've also signed international treaties such as on the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, Convention on Nuclear Safety, and more. In Russia, they signed the Antarctic Treaty. So this dictates that no military activities or weapons testing and radioactive waste can be disposed in Antarctica. And this is like a international treaty. And they've also signed the Convention on Nuclear Safety. So they've also allowed the regulation of nuclear activities to ensure the safety of installations. And they also signed the BTWC, which prohibits biological weapons and eliminates the existing ones and the production of more. So this is a way to prevent uh, radioactive waste from further being introduced into communities and environments. And together, the two countries have also signed hundreds of more documents related to radiation safety and public health, but those would be too long to mention in here. And so, the sustainable development goal that I believe this subject is related to is goal number 3, good health and well-being, because these countries have already experienced their meltdown and their radiation pollution, and now the goal for them now is to clean it all up and prepare for it if shall it ever happen again. And as we've seen, they created the committees and signed the laws to help protect their communities. And lastly, solutions. So, some general solutions to radiation pollution are the removal of external radioactive particles, washing contaminated clothes, shoes, or materials, and that's more so in the direct aftermath. And then also water treatment, although there's no pure solution. Kazakhstan and Russia have tried carbon filtering, ion exchange, water softening, and reverse osmosis to get rid of any like waste. And then in Kazakhstan, the plutonium was stored in empty mines in the country. And then Russia, they stored their cesium and iodine waste in special facilities. And I thought that was really interesting on how the two countries compared in that part. And thank you for listening to this presentation. And here's my bibliography.